All right, everyone, it's almost there. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we are live on YouTube.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here for the September 2020 meeting of the Zoning and Land Use Committee. We are meeting tonight to discuss the proposed development at 9201 Fifth Avenue. We met in May 14th to discuss this, and we had several questions. And Todd Dale went back to the developer to discuss them. There were many concerns, but most of them were ingress and egress to the property and the number of parking spaces. While rightfully some members said we should not be encouraging parking. Sometimes for medical facilities it's necessary. And I think the nature of that intersection, 92nd Street and Fifth Avenue, which is very busy, many driveways, bus stops, the firehouse, that more consideration was needed. So we're very grateful to Todd Dale for bringing this back, and interesting to see what he has to hear. And we're also going at some point to have a little tutorial on ULUP. You know, we haven't met for several months. Our brains get foggy over the summer, and under these conditions, our brains get foggier all the more often. So if we're going to do at some point a short tutorial on the universal land use
Review process. And also, Doris, I think we should recognize we have a new committee member.
Yes.
Who I'm sure is going to love this committee, and that's Waging Leo, who joined us tonight. So welcome.
Thank you for joining us. And
hi, sorry, I'm cooking dinner. That's why I have everyone on mute and video off.
Okay.
Welcome,
I'm glad
welcome
to be part of this. Thank you.
And we welcome you. And it's interesting. Zoning can be very technical, but in some ways it's just plain old common sense. And we tend to use a lot of euphemisms and acronyms. And please feel free to say, what are you talking about? Explain that in English, because it helps all of us when we do that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So Josephine, do we want to go to Todd's presentation?
Yeah, so Todd, I don't know. I'm thinking of how, do you have slides to present? We have the slides that we presented last month. I'm sorry, last time we met together, not last month, back in May. I don't know how, does the committee members want me to just show the area again, just to take a look, and then maybe Todd could speak about the feedback he received from the applicant? What do you guys think?
I can give a brief refresher on what the action is, and then maybe try and address the questions. And then if you can share like plan slides, that's great. I also have my computer and I can try and share screen, but I think my video on this computer is also having a problem because I think I'm giving a static picture. So we can do our best. But if you want, I can just give a brief overview again about what the application was as a reminder, and then maybe speak to some of those key questions. So this is an application to the Board of Standard Appeals. It's for a special permit under section 73-44 of the zoning resolution. And a special permit is seeking to permit the reduction of required accessory parking spaces for a proposed new building with uses in parking requirement category B1. Just so you know, category B1 is generally office uses. All right. So this site is located at the corner of the intersection of 5th Avenue and 92nd Street. The total lot area is approximately 10,442 square feet. It's currently developed with a single-story building. I believe it's the Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, or the restaurant, that would be proposed to be demolished to allow for development of a new building. It is located in a C23 commercial overlay over an R6B zoning district. And the C23 overlay extends 100 feet from Fifth Avenue, with the remaining 16 feet located in an R5B zoning district, but the proposed building would be fully located within the commercial zoning district. So located towards Fifth Avenue, the Fifth Avenue side of the lot. So the proposal was to construct this cellar and 3-story mixed-use building that would contain commercial and community facility uses. The proposal would be the cellar on the first floor for commercial office space, so not retail, be specifically office space. And the upper 2 stories would be community facility. The zoning resolution calls it ambulatory, diagnostic, or treatment facilities. You would know them as doctor's offices. Those would be the top 2 stories. The first floor would be 6,700 square feet approximately, the second 8,200 square feet, and the top floor would be approximately 4,900 square feet. The total FAR would be 1.91, which is compliant with the 2.0 FAR that is allowed. The proposal also called for 6 accessory parking spaces that would be located on the towards the existing building there. Let me see if I can find the plan. I was getting my directions messed up here. But towards along towards up 92nd Street. The special permit, just to get the parameters down, is that the special permit, if you meet the findings for it, it allows for a 50% reduction in the amount of required parking. So obtaining that special permit would reduce the amount of required parking to 25. But if you have required parking that is 25 spaces or less in this particular zoning district, it can be waived. So the actual required parking, accessory parking, should the special permit be granted, would be 0 parking spaces. But as I said, there's 6 voluntary accessory spaces that are going to be, that are proposed to be provided. So that's the quick rundown. Now, there were a number of great questions that were raised by the community board last time. I will speak to those then, and if there's any additional questions about the application of those questions. But one of the key questions that first came up was, would it be possible to relocate any of the floor area on the first floor up to the 3rd floor? Because the 3rd floor is a partial story. It's only 4,959 square feet, as opposed to the larger 2nd and 1st floor. And the thought was that if you could relocate some of that area to the upper floor, that could provide more parking or more space down at the ground level. However, because of height and setback requirements in this district, confirmed it with the architect, you're limited, and the partial 3rd floor is that all can be, is all that would be allowed by the bulk district. We can't extend to the full extent. So that's why the building is designed that way. There was also a question about the drop off and perhaps patients coming to the medical uses that would be located on the upper story. And so we went back and we had a long talk with the architect and the property owners about the idea about these 6 accessory spaces. And as an alternative, could we remove one or some or all of them in order to provide a turnaround or a loading and unloading area? So in case you had like an accessoride come in, or you were dropping off patients, depending on the nature of the medical use, you could have a patient drop-off area. And I would say 2 things to that. First, the property owners thought that was a great idea, and they're very open to that idea. And the architect said that that's something that could be done. However, we did not create any new plans for it at this point for 2 reasons. First, we did recently have a Board of Standard Appeals hearing date assigned for November 9th, 2020. So you can mark that in your calendar. That's the first hearing date we had before the commissioners of the BSA. But the thought was that they did not want to redesign everything at this juncture because they wanted to have the hearing date. But at the hearing, we would say to the BSA that if the BSA had a preference one way or another, that we were more than welcome to go ahead and explore those designs. The short of it is that especially, with the current BSA, we tend to try and not do too much design before we have the first hearing, because often we'll do the redesigning and then they'll come back with comments saying that they want us to change everything that we change. Okay, so I would just say to your board that if that's something that you feel is a better idea, removing again some or all of those parking spots and coming up with a unloading or unloading area, the property owners and developers think that's great. And they would actually, before that, and they would recommend that in any communication you send to the BSA, if you do issue a recommendation on this application, one way or another, either for it or against it, that you could include that as a condition or a suggestion, because that then would become part of the record, and we could speak to that at the hearing and let the commissioners know that we would agreeable to that type of situation. There was another question, just two other questions. Those were the two main questions. Another question was regarding the types of tenants. At this point, there still are no specific tenants set for the building because it's still early in the process. But I would want to reconfirm that the cellar and the first floor, which would be commercial office space, should this be granted by the BSA, they would not make it a general use group 6 that we could put in any sort of retail store or different type of store. It would be locked into the particular uses that are shown on the plan and would be reflected in the resolution. And that means that it would be office space at the lowest levels, which tend to be lower traffic generating than a retail environment. It would be medical offices, the community facility offices that we talked about up there. The specific findings of this special permit actually, but the key finding, should the board grant it or should the BSA grant it, is that they actually have to put a condition on the certificate of occupancy that says you can't change the uses. That's one of the conditions of the grant. So I just wanted to put that out there again and to reassure that this would not be a bait and switch situation, especially for this type of application, because the specific grant requires that the CO list this and list the conditions that it cannot be changed. And then the other question that came up is there was a question about the open area and the access to the site. Just to confirm, there's the open space is by the existing residential building. It was designed, the idea was to design to put the bulk of the building towards Fifth Avenue and away from that building to maintain light and air and provide a bit of an additional buffer for that building. But there were questions last time where some members asked if, well, maybe we could shift it that way and have access from Fifth Avenue instead of 92nd Street. That doesn't end up working, both because of the desire to maintain the open space in that area, but also importantly, because the zoning district, the commercial overlay, only extends the, I believe it's the 100 feet from Fifth Avenue. So you can't actually have commercial space in that area because that would be putting commercial space in a residential district. You could put community facility in there, but you couldn't. So with the floor plan where it's designed to keep one floor consistent with one use, that's why it has to be located over towards Fifth Avenue, just because you can't have an illegal use in something you're proposing. So that's my long-winded speech, giving you a background on the application and some of the points with the questions. If there's any other follow-up questions, I'm happy to try and speak to them, but hopefully it gives you a little understanding. One thing I would say though is we did appreciate the comments that were raised, and as I said, the property owners architect thought they were a very good idea, and they're open to it pending BSA comment.
Okay, this is Doris Cruz, the chair, and I live very close to the area and I'm very familiar with it. I'm concerned that you feel you cannot relocate the access to the property to Fifth Avenue because access at 92nd Street at many times of the day will be very problematic. Other than that, any questions from the rest of the committee? Come on, guys, you're never that quiet.
Because I talked too long, that's why.
Sorry, it's way. What does BSA stand for?
Board of Standards and Appeals.
Okay, and the FAR is floor area
Ratio.
Got it.
Way, we're going to get you an acronym book and a
I would
zoning
love it.
regulations book, yes. And after this meeting, we're going to speak to one of our fellows who's working on that. So you're going to be so
Oh.
happy. Yes.
Amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
It's good. There's actually, just to give you a heads up, if you go to the Department of City Planning website, they have an online zoning resolution. And the last time I checked, they did have a glossary of like some key terms. So
Yes.
in addition to they can do it, you can look at the Department of City Planning website.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the lingo's second nature to me, so I start throwing it out and I don't even think about it.
And certain things, we are very, others are more obscure and we do tend to try to explain them, but it's very important that we make that clear to everybody. And it helps us as committee members to know that we're reaching everyone.
So I have a question. I heard that the applicant is receptive to the idea to making some kind of a turnaround area for accessoride or somebody else might need it. Did the architects look at that and say that's something that's doable?
We did have some very basic sketches, and yes, the architect did say that's something you could do, that if you removed, again, some or all of the parking spots, you could have some sort of turnaround. It would be in the location where the accessory parking spaces are currently located. But it's one of those things, and it's, as I said, the hesitation of coming up with full and final plans. Recently, we've had situations where we revise plans right before a BSA hearing, and then we get to the BSA hearing, and the chairwoman and the commissioners are like, well, we'd like to look at the other one, or can you change it back? So that's why I wanted us to confirm that we're very open to looking at it, but just from a practical and operational standpoint, it makes sense to have the initial hearing, make it clear to the commissioners that that's something that's considered, and we're happy to explore if they want us to, and then let them lead, because they will definitely take under advisement everything Community Board 10 presents to them, but in the end, they have strong feelings. They're the ones who would make the decision one way or another. So that was the thought process. But the short answer is yes, it would be feasible and conceivable to do something to rearrange that.
Yeah, thank you.
So Stephanie Mahaney has her hands raised.
Yes, thank you. I have in my notes from our last meeting, Todd, I don't know if it was you who said this. I'm thinking it is that I noted that city planning has seen that these types of offices don't require as much parking. Was that an accurate note that I took? And if so, could you explain why? I've tried to find information on it and I have not been able to.
So that was likely something I said, that the design of this special permit, okay, you'll often have applications come before your board for review that are either special permits or variances. And a variance is a more involved application where you have to meet specific findings. And if a variance is granted by the BSA, they're actually changing the law. Like you have to meet a more stringent level of findings. The special permit is a lower level bar. And what that likely was me saying that the Department of City Planning or the City Council, when they installed or put this into the zoning resolution, there was an understanding that these B1 parking category uses, which are office uses, have less stringent parking demand than other uses that would typically be in a use group 6. Just for those who aren't familiar, use group 6 is the sort of catch-all commercial use. It would include stores, banks, restaurants. I mean, all these different things. And as you can understand, like a restaurant is much more likely to have a high traffic volume and a high parking volume than, let's say, an accountant's office. I mean, unless it's April 14th, right? So the understanding, and perhaps I wasn't clear when I said it last time, but the understanding is that this special permit is designed to reflect the understanding that city planning and city council recognize that even though these are all use group 6 uses, that these B1 uses are lower demand. And because of their lower demand, rather than trying to separate categories, they put this special permit in saying, look, you are these uses, you can reduce the amount of parking. However, as a condition, we're going to make sure that the certificate of occupancy permanently reflects that, and that you can't change it and do a bait and switch. So you couldn't get this special permit and then, let's say, put in a Kentucky Fried Chicken that requires more uses. So That's my long-winded explanation. Maybe that explains that.
That was great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And, anyone else?
I have a question. So 92nd Street from Fifth Avenue to Fort Hamilton Parkway is a two-way street. So the side of the lot, the property that we're looking at, that is that complete side of the street is a no standing area. So it's a moving lane of traffic. So I think that turnaround area is really going to be necessary to this project. Or, and I just, I realize that, that tends to back up, as the chair said, as Doris said, any given points, of the day. And I think that the only area for potential ambulette parking would be on the Fifth Avenue frontage. And I mean, currently there's a curb cut for the rear parking lot, which I'm sure if the building is going to affront Fifth Avenue will be restored. That sidewalk will be restored, and potentially that could be an area. So I think that the entrance is a key issue here, and because of 92nd Street, and that it's a two-way with a no standing on one side of the street.
Should I raise my hand at that?
Yeah, there's two people raising their hand, but I couldn't see who they were. There were
Okay,
two.
well, I physically raised one. I didn't do my.
Okay.
I have a concern. If you cannot relocate the ingress and egress to Fifth Avenue, because 92nd Street is busy and narrow, could you require that they make a right turn only so they do not cross 92nd Street?
100%. We'd be very open, and I think that's a great idea, that what you do is you end up posting a sign that says right turn only, and right there, and make it clear and obvious for any vehicle that's exiting. They know that they need to go the proper way on 92nd. So yes, I will commit to saying that any design, revised design that has a turnaround area will definitely have the right turn only sign.
Great. Anyone else?
Joe has his hand up.
Joe?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. Long time no see. It's nice to see some faces.
It is.
Hey, Todd, if I asked you a question about specifics about the layout, would you be able to answer that, or would you defer my question to the architect?
How about I give you a very attorney-like maybe?
Okay.
So
let me share my.
ask me the question, and we'll see if it's something that I say that in a joking fashion, but it may be something we
Sure.
discussed with the architect. If not,
I'm proposing a possible solution, and in regard to providing the ability to give turnaround for an ambulatory vehicle. Can you go to the first floor plan?
Is this Joe?
These
What
are
do
the
you want me to-
elevations in section. Yeah, keep going. That's the building section. Keep going. Keep going.
the floor plans will be the other way, most likely. It's probably BSA-1 or BSA-2.
I didn't see it.
Well, no, I don't think so.
It was in the email that you sent. Well, maybe
Oh,
you already sent it.
okay. Yeah, these were just slides I made up.
All right, let me try and do something. Let me
can-
from my computer see if I can share my screen.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and then you could share.
All right, let's try and share the screen, and let's try this. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's perfect. You can see it right there. So
right.
you see what your hand is?
The little hand here. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
You're right about there. I see you have a staircase with a fairly large areaway, that square box, which is the landing, the entrance to the cellar.
Right here. Yep.
That's unusually large, and I kind of question, why is it that size? That's one comment. And the second comment is, given that you are providing some parking spaces, maybe you want to go, this is the aerial, so maybe go to the next floor, the first floor plan.
That's the cellar floor. So let's go to the first floor plan. How's that?
Yeah, perfect. Yep, that's it right there.
Okay,
So where it says 13'8",
right down
right
there.
there, right. That's the areaway for the entrance to the cellar. I kind of question, why is it that size? It's one. Two, you have these breezeways carved out right above it where there's like a square grid pattern.
Right here.
I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. Potentially, you can take that staircase and tuck it underneath that breezeway and free up some area in the parking area and make that rear side, the back section of the lot, I guess large enough to make a K-turn or something similar, so an accessory can get in and out of there.
Yeah, 100%. Just so you know, sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, when we were originally doing the sketches of the architect, he actually proposed removing this stair and putting it in here. This is sort of a lobbyish type entrance, and then creating much more of a clear open space back here.
Yeah.
So if you follow my hand,
Huh?
all right, my hand, this area coming down like this, and then like this, and then like this, over like that, that would all be a paved area. So it did provide an option for a little bit of a turnaround. And it might be possible to be honest, since we don't use these parking spaces right here, if these parking spaces were removed, conceivably this wall that I'm speaking at, he talked about possibly moving that out a little bit here and moving this wall in to make it a more even setup. The reason that it's got this notch right now really is because of the provision of the parking spaces, which are, require more length in order to have the 2 lanes and move in. But if you're going to remove these parking spots and have it be a turnaround, it provides you more flexibility as far as this wall. It doesn't need to be as jagged. It can be changed around in order to make it cleaner. So you are correct. That was, his pencil sketches that he showed me were of that nature.
Yeah, it's just an odd layout. I think the architect can do a better job of cleaning that up and maybe providing additional space to meet the board's
Sure.
Requirements.
Yeah, 100% agreed, and that's the thought. But as I said, we didn't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of doing the design, only to come back to the BSA and have one of the commissioners say, change it all again.
Okay, that's all I had. I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't see anyone else with their hands raised, Doris, so that's
Okay, I
good.
just raised mine.
Okay.
I think there's very good intent here, but I'm concerned about making a decision or a possible approval without really seeing the final design. We don't really know what we're opting in for here.
If I could just speak to that, what I would say is, just so your board is aware, any revision to the plans, we would be required to send to the community board. So you would see copies of a revised plan if the BSA said, yes, we like that idea, we want you to explore that idea. So normally we just send the copies of the submission out, but in this instance, what I could do is I could, I've been in contact with Dorothy a lot, I can directly, double check and make sure that it's received by the community board. And I'd also include information about any BSA dates, so that community board 10 would have the option to, weigh in either in person or in writing at the hearing. The other thing I would say is actually one of the advantages for all the frustrations we're dealing with right now. One of the advantages is that if you did want to participate in the BSA hearing, they're currently being conducted on Zoom. So you wouldn't need to run down there on a Tuesday in the middle of the day. You could log into the computer and make any comments up there. But I just want to clarify that if the design changes, and I actually think it's a good idea to do that, but if the design changes, those plans will be sent to you for review.
Doris, if I might,
Yeah, oh, no, Trustee Joe.
I did speak to BSA last week. They did mention to me that it's scheduled for November, as Todd indicated. And I think that, you know, the BSA does like to hear from the board, and perhaps putting our thoughts and concerns down in the form of a motion, you know, as it speaks to the design would be helpful. You know, in this way, we're documented, we'll, you know, list all of the design features and, you know, the areas of concern we have perhaps, and our recommendations on design improvements that we would like to see as part of this application.
Thank you.
And I could just say that the current board will 100% be aware of whatever a community board recommends.
Do we have any more questions or concerns? Is anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
18.
Okay. Make a motion that the board approve the request for, well, I guess, zero parking or whatever the proper terminology should be.
Reduced parking.
And that's really the only thing before the board. The rest is recommendations we could make regarding turnarounds and anything else.
do we want to add recommendations?
Sure, we can.
Does anyone want to make them? Do you want to make them, Dean?
Well, one, I think that we will agree on is that we want to have a redesign in order to have a turnaround area for vehicles. And then
Okay,
in terms of the specific things that Joe was bringing up, I don't know if I would speak to that, but I don't know if anybody else wants to.
It's all the same, Dean.
Okay,
It's all the same. It supports the ability to get in and out of the lot without backing out of it and
Right.
creating any traffic issues.
right.
any other recommendations? Do I have a second to the motion? Joe? Okay.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote.
Mhm.
Doris,
Yes,
Michael,
Yes.
Barbara Gurmak,
yes,
Wei Jing, Leo,
Yes.
Stephanie Mahaney,
Yes.
Anthony Marino,
Yes.
Susan Pulaski,
yes.
Dean,
Yes,
Joe Tulamello.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank
Wow.
you all. So this is going to be voted on, Todd, at Monday's meeting. You're welcome to join us virtually if you are able. If anyone else has questions at the full board meeting, it might be great for you to be there. And that's all.
Thank you all.
Oh, wait, we lost Todd. Wait a second, Todd. We lost him. He's coming back in. He's connecting, so I guess
My computer died, the one that I went to for audio.
that's okay,
Very
Todd.
bad computer night.
So Todd, I'll just recap for you that a motion was just supported by the committee. The recommendation will be presented to the full board at Monday's meeting, and that's to approve the BSA application as presented with the following recommendations: to have the redesigned turnaround area for vehicle, to support the ability to go in and out of the lot without traffic issues along 92nd Street. So what I was saying is that you're invited to the meeting on Monday, and it might be helpful for you to be in attendance in the event that there are the questions from the members of the full board.
Unfortunately, if it's this Monday, I can't make it. I'll see if someone else from the office can be available.
Okay,
But
Or if-
how's this? If I'm not able to make it, I'll just confirm by email. And what I'll do is, everyone knows how to reach me. If there's any particular questions that come up, you can email me and I'll respond to them later in the week.
great. Okay, thank you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Everyone
Thank
have a
you very
great
much.
night. I hope
Thank
it's better than my computers are doing.
Yeah,
Thanks,
too
Bob.
much virtual meeting, I guess.
Exactly. Take care.
Thank you.
Nice seeing everyone.
Yeah, so we have one more item, actually, maybe two more items to talk about. Anish Pendekar, as you all know, was a fellow for Community Board 10 and did an outstanding presentation before we went on hiatus of 65th Street corridor, but he has been working with us this summer, which we're so happy to have him. And I'm just going to turn the meeting over to him so he could talk a little bit about putting together a handout for zoning and land use committee meetings and board members, both present and in the future, kind of like a zoning for dummies or zoning 101. But maybe Anish, you could talk a little bit about what you've been working on for us.
Yeah, sure. So Josephine and Michael had a great idea about like creating a informational handout containing like general terms which the committee refers to while reviewing applications, or like the common type of applications the committee comes across. So I started making a document, and I just wanted to share it with you to like get all of your comments on it, or how should I go about it, what to add to it, and
What you would like to see, right?
so I can share my screen right now. It's online. I can also share the link with all of you once it's like a bit finished. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So I'll just go one by one up on like what I have done so far. So we started with like basic kind of applications which we come across regularly. So for example, what is the ULEP process? What is a special permit? What is a text change application? What are sidewalk cafes, and like what are their licenses and things like that? What is it required for a public school? Like what are the requirements for like citing a public school in the community district and things like that? So, and then general questions which get asked in the community board meetings or in the public hearings. So for example, for a sidewalk cafe, so this is an overview of all the type of zoning and land use applications the city has, and then an introduction to what we will discuss in this like document. For example, there's a chapter on sidewalk cafes. So there will be an introduction of what actually is a sidewalk cafe, like what is the definition according to the city, what are the types of sidewalk cafes. So it will talk about like there are 3 types, and what is an enclosed, what is an unenclosed cafe, and things like that. Then general rules about like how to judge a sidewalk cafe application. For example, I write here that I reviewed the city documents, and it has 3 conditions to judge a sidewalk cafe application. First, the NYC zoning resolution has to permit 1 cafe in the area. Then the street has to be one where a sidewalk cafe is permitted. Then the design has to be according to the city standards. So there are like all these different requirements summarized in each section. So what will be the physical criteria? For example, there must be a certain sidewalk width to permit a cafe. There should be required number of tables and chairs. There should be no hindrance to the fire exit and things like that. And after that, so after all this, I also reviewed the previous board meetings. For example, there was a recent board meeting in April about renewing a license of an enclosed sidewalk cafe on the 4th Avenue. So I provide a small context here about what the meeting was about, and then what the questions, what all questions were asked in the meeting. So, for example, would there be sufficient space left for walking after the extension? How would the cafe impact the ease of access to the fire escape? How would the owner access the cellar door? So things like this, like general questions which get asked about all these applications. And then there will also be a section on like what terms, for example, what is BSA, what is FAR, things like that. So basic introduction to all these common terms. And there are like different chapters for each of these types of applications. So public school, or what is a ULUP process, what are the components to it, what is the timeline for it, and things like that. Yeah,
Wow.
I'll just
Special
scroll.
permits, and here we are today.
Yeah, actually, this is the same case which we were discussing today. Like I took it from the last community, like the last minute's report. So yeah, things like this. Yeah. So like this is a basic draft, and I'm like still working on it. So I just wanted to get your comments, like how to make it more.
Initially, I think it's going to be very helpful.
Yeah. I think they're having a quick acronym page, maybe,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We used acronyms, quick view.
Sure.
Anyone else?
I mean,
Just,
what I like about this is that, Department of City Planning has their own guide and, we can all look at it, but this is great because it's customized towards Bay Ridge. And, when you go, you look at the DCP guide, there's like stuff about skyscrapers in there. And we obviously don't need to see that. So this is all like using case studies, stuff that we, commonly see. So that's why I think this is more useful. It distills it in a way for us, instead of having to go through all these other types of land zoning and land use things that we are never going to see here.
Right. Also, and to Michael's point, Anish, maybe we could have a page or two about the special Bay Ridge district, because that's unique in the zoning resolution, for us here in District 10. Right. And maybe, just a little, maybe 2 paragraphs just about the background of the rezonings that took place in 05 and 07.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But that's great. It looks wonderful. Thank you.
It does.
Great.
I didn't notice, was there a section on variances?
Yes, it's mentioned.
Okay. Because sometimes we always have the question, well, why a variance as opposed to a special permit? So if there's something on each, then we can focus on that. That makes it easy.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you, Anish. That was
Thanks,
awesome.
Anish.
Look forward to the finished product. The last thing, Doris, I would like to just share with the committee. Tomorrow all will be getting an email from me, because we have our first ULURP, as Doris mentioned at the beginning. We did have a preliminary meeting with the applicant for 9114 Fifth Avenue. This is the application for a text change of the section of across the street from our K-8 school there on Fifth Avenue and 92nd Street. The application was certified on September 14th. The ULURP clock will begin on September 24th. It is a very detailed proposal. It's currently a CA2 district, and as you recall, they are seeking to rezone it to a R7A with a C42A overlay. So with the MIH, it's a 9-story building. It is a very detailed application. So it's going to require a lot of reading, and we are, Doris, myself, will be working with Department of City Planning to get some advice, because this will be our first virtual EULA review. So I envision that we will have at least 2 meetings and a public hearing. The district office will do an every door direct mailing to the surrounding area for public input and comment. We will be working out some type of schedule to review plans to any member of the public who is interested in reviewing the plans that do not have virtual access or email capability, because we feel that is very important. And I think that's it. We have a lot of work ahead of us, committee, so you'll be getting some homework tomorrow from me.
I want to support that. The review of this project, it requires a lot of review and thought, and I ask you all to put your efforts into it, because we need everyone's input.
I'd like to share just a piece of information that I came across a couple of weeks ago regarding hotels in the borough of Brooklyn. Out of all of the hotels, 60% are used as homeless shelters.
Yeah. That's certainly the concern. And one last piece I have for the committee members to share with you. Over the summer, the Department of Information and Technology sent out to the community boards information about the 5G network and changes to antenna affixed to street lights.
Oh,
So normally this is a topic that, and they were seeking input on the design. So normally this is a topic that would go to our communications committee, but because it was the summer, we had, we were in hiatus, so most boards didn't, and we just figured it would go ahead without board input because we were in hiatus. We received an email yesterday asking the board to comment on the application. So tomorrow I am going to send out the PowerPoint just because of the hour tonight. And it's really, we talked about zoning and land use committee, but it really is just a change in the design of the way some street poles will have antenna affixed to it for the 5G network. So what we decided to do was to email the full board. We will have a brief presentation at the full board meeting. We're going to ask board members to look at the presentation in advance that was provided to us by the Department of Information and Technology. And if there's any feedback, is kind of what they're looking for to send to the Public Design Commission, so we could pretty much say anything. So you'll get a separate email from me about that tomorrow, so be on the lookout. And as zoning and land use committee members, I know you have a lot to say about design and streetscape, so take a good look at it, put your thoughts together, and like this Monday, we could have a conversation about it as well.
oh, fun.
Yes. And that's all I have. I'm done, Doris. That's the updates for the committee.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here, being on your game as you always are. And I ask for a motion. And any new business? Anyone else want to add? Old business? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Barbara. Second? Okay,
Michael,
thank you, Michael.
all in favor? You can raise your hands. Yay.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you
to
all.
see you. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you
night.
all.
Good
Thank
seeing
you.
everybody. See you Monday.
Yes, take care.
Thank you all.